Hello, everybody. This is Frankie Day for Frankie Day Models. Okay, this is Live Action Thursday, Part 2. We got two videos out. I got the one on the PBY we have right now going for you. We're going to go ahead and switch cameras and go in there. We're going to do a live action on this thing. And get back to me. Well, I have the thing completely all cameled, and we'll have the painted white. We'll have the blue-gray color on there. And everything else will be just done off camera and final reveal. So like I say, we'll have about 1, 2, 3 final reveals this week coming up. I was waiting for this weather to break right now. It's so darn cold outside. I was hoping to get some warm temperatures. I can take these things outside. It's hard to take good pictures in here. The lighting system around here. They deserve a lot more better pictures for proper lighting, so I can take it outside and do it. But if not, I'll fix up some kind of display right here and do it here. Okay, we're going to get the PBY going. I'm going to use two colors here. I'll probably mention it in the video. My mission models, you got your white and also your blue-gray. That's for the earlier period PBYs, 1940-41. And 1942 on up, they're intermediate blue, and then became all black cats. The PBY was always a favorite aircraft of most of the modelers. I've always loved the PBY. I got a few under my belt I built. I got a few in my stash, and I got a couple I've built already hanging around somewhere in my storage. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get this video going, and we'll get right back to me, and I'll tell you what's on the bench, what I'll be doing next. And most of you probably already know what I'll be doing next, and just you never know about me, what I'll be doing. Okay, without further ado, we're going to switch cameras, go over here, and we'll get this video going. Here we go, take it away. Okay, before we get started right here, the base coat of black paint has been applied to the wing and the fuselage. The icer boots have been masted off already. We'll be using these colors here, but modeled by mission models. You got your white and also your blue-gray. So we'll start out with the white.
In the Pacific, black painted cats flying at night pounced on unsuspecting Japanese ships. Using archive film and color reenactments, Battle Station joins the crew of a long-range Catalina as they patrol the dark waters of the ocean and hunt down the enemy. In 1907, a young motorcycle manufacturer from Hamilton, New York, became fascinated with the adventure of flight. His name was Glenn H. Curtis, and he would become immortalized as the creator of a very special kind of aircraft. Curtis was a born inventor. After numerous experiments, he designed an aircraft that could take off and land on water, the flying boat. Soon the military began to take an interest. During World War I, flying boats were widely used as platforms, mostly certain for submarines. It was the birth of a new era in naval warfare.
In the First World War, the U.S. Navy really didn't have a land flying capability.
Using the vertical shift across there, we'll pull in later. They do the flow weather. And the airflow of the wing, the leading edge of killing it.
After the war, hundreds of surplus warplanes were sold off at bargain prices, helping to fuel the passion for aviation that now gripped America. The flying boat's ability to operate in any stretch of calm water gave it an almost unlimited freedom, opening up new frontiers to aviation. When Pan American introduced its luxury skipper service to Central and South America, the golden age of the flying boat had arrived. Like
Turn the PSI down a little more.
the Pan Am clippers of the 1930s allowed the rich to travel in style to exotic destinations. But the Navy also saw a tactical role for large, long-range aircraft, patrolling the world's oceans to give early warning of any threat to American interests. Soon the flying boat became a key part of the nation's defense plan.
The main advantages of the flying boat over a wheeled aircraft, certainly in the early stages before the advent of the aircraft carrier, was the great range that they had. Plus, they could land almost anywhere. So they could shut down any number of forward bases. And that's what made the flying boat a real advantageous platform for Navy operations, particularly in the Pacific, where the Navy was definitely looking towards fighting the next war.
In 1933, the Navy invited bids for a new long-range patrol aircraft. The Consolidated Aircraft Corporation had already designed flying boats for the Navy and was determined to secure
I just fill in the vertical strokes make right there, and it's kind of
their chief designer was a
take them out
talented
if you
engineer
wish.
called Isaac
More or less just
McLeod.
feathered ends, all one big one, all one color.
In the early 1930s, most aircraft were still biface, with fabric-covered wings braced by a maze of steel wires. In a bold move, Mac Madden created a metal monoplane. Its huge wing was supported on a single pylon above the fuselage, braced to the hull by only 4 struts.
I got another one of these in my warehouse. And
All flying boats needed outrigger floats for stability on water, but in the air they became a liability, increasing drag and reducing performance.
we're going to do another one of these Airfix jobs, see an English one, Coastal Command.
Designing floats that folded up in
All white, slate gray, dark gray.
reducing the drag while adding lift. The Navy was suitably impressed, and in June 1935, Consolidated won a contract for 60 aircraft, the biggest military order since World War I. The plane that now came off the production line would become a classic. It was known by its code letters, PBY.
Again, you want to get rid of your appreciating
for
like
patrol,
that, because
B
you do that,
for
you'll
bomber, and Y the prefix for
you'll
Consolidated.
destroy all your details
The
of
PBY was a big aircraft, and
of
it
your work.
certainly looked impressive.
And here were all those great big beautiful PBYs. It was love at first sight. And I said, well, I've got to fly those.
Oh, I've seen a PBY. And it was gracefully soaring above us. And it was so beautiful. In my mind, it was like a soaring eagle. It just soared and made slow turns. And later on, I found out that what a devil it could do.
PBY, the Navy calls her. Back in 1935, the first PBYs took to the water and the air. Commonplace today, but then a milestone in the history of aviation.
But the PBY would be best known as the Catalina, or simply the Cat. With a cruising speed of little more than 130 miles per hour, the big twin-engine Catalina was not exactly fast, but it had tremendous endurance, with a range of well over 3,000 miles, and it could stay in the air for over 15 hours. Although it was always vulnerable to attack, its main armament was substantial. It consisted of 2 heavy-caliber machine guns mounted in blisters on each side of the rear fuselage. Although it had originally been designed as a patrol
You're just filling it in.
the
Right
PBY
here.
could carry 4 1,000-pound bombs, or 2 torpedoes, which greatly increased its tactical value to the Navy.
The PBY did everything it was asked to do and more. It covered a lot of ground and it could remain aloft for a great deal of time. Basically, though, it was designed to stop the enemy's fleet. Radar was as different as infantry then, and nothing could beat the 2 human eyes spotting the fleet and reporting it back to home base.
By the late 1930s, the world was becoming a dangerous place. In the Pacific, Japan was steadily becoming more powerful and more aggressive. In Europe, Hitler's Germany was openly rearming.
Pretty good. Going to do a little more feathering in.
Threatened to dominate the Atlantic. Britain and America watched and waited as tensions steadily mounted. Both nations realized that airborne early warning would play a vital role in future conflicts. Most admirals still put their faith in big gun warships, but a few believed that if war should come, it would be decided by air power. They would soon discover just how right they were. September 1939, Europe is plunged into war. Britain's first line of defense was the Royal Navy. Many of its warships carried seaplanes, which could be launched by catapults to scout beyond the horizon. The problem was getting them back. The open sea is a dangerous place to land an aircraft.
And 2 live-action videos in one day ain't too bad.
Multi-engine, long-range patrol planes were
I think I'll call myself Mojo
but
Man.
Britain's hard-pressed RAF simply didn't have enough of it. In 1940, they ordered a fleet of PBYs to help patrol the Atlantic. It was the RAF pilots who coined the name Catalina. They liked the aircraft and soon discovered that B in PBY really did mean bomber. They began using their Catalinas to attack German U-boats. Since the start of the war, the Nazi wolf packs had roamed across the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean, sending scores of British ships to the bottom. The Catalina became a key weapon in the battle against the U-boats, locating and sinking.
I always clean this off anyway. Here's glass cleaner. Because a lot of alcohol, I clean this stuff up no time. Come back and send it in my work I just did a while ago.
But Germany's powerful fleet
You always control your
remained a potent threat. In May 1941,
appreciating
the
by
Cat
flying
helped
the white.
secure a major British victory at sea. The Royal Navy was in hot pursuit of the German battleship, the Bismarck. At 42,000 tons, she was the pride of the Nazi battlefield and Hitler's favorite warship. In an engagement west of Iceland, the Bismarck had sunk the British battleship HMS Hood with a direct hit. Only 3 of her crew survived.
Tango PBY has always been a favorite for a lot of
Bismarck
smugglers.
then escaped into the fog and vanished.
Somewhere under that mystery of fog, the Bismarck was steaming
I remember the Roar one came out in
for a safe haven.
1956.
Then a whistle
I thought it was a big model,
telltale
it probably
wait.
still is in
A
some
captain
sense, but
attached the word, quarry sighted.
this came out back in
It was the captain of the
1964.
the RAF Coastal Command, which finally hunted down the Bismarck. A position was reported, and Britain's Royal Navy closed in for the kill. The Bismarck went down with only 115 out of the 2,400 men on board surviving.
Britain had maintained her supremacy in the North Atlantic with the help of a plane designed to maintain United States supremacy in the Pacific.
The attack on the Bismarck clearly demonstrated the value of a long-range patrol aircraft in combat. The US was quick to learn the lesson. The long-range Catalina was the ideal aircraft for patrolling the ocean. But getting it
Once the war gets going, it'll take long to paint this bad boy, I'll tell you that.
beaching gear. It was a slow and tedious process. To solve the problem, the PBY5A was introduced, A standing for amphibious. With a retractable undercarriage, this version of the Cat was equally at home on land or at sea. Catalinas were soon stationed in US bases across the Pacific, from Midway to the Philippines, and from Wake Island to Pearl Harbor. As Japan became increasingly hostile, the Navy stepped up its daily reconnaissance flights. On a peaceful Sunday morning in December 1941, the Japanese finally launched their attack on the Pacific battle fleet moored at Pearl Harbor.
I see them coming around one by one. They bomb, and then they make a circle and come around again. They must have made about 2 or 4 punches on each defense. You can believe it, and you didn't think it was happening. The whole sky was black with smoke. Everything was on fire, and there was dead people on the dock, and well was 3 feet thick on the water, and people were going around with utter confusion.
The Japanese had not only crippled the American Pacific fleet, they had almost wiped out the airborne patrol force. 67 Catalinas were badly damaged or completely destroyed.
They picked a beautiful time.
Bowl's empty, I'm out of paint.
Saluting the flag.
I gotta put a little bit more in there.
And they weren't saluting their guns.
Pearl Harbor was a bitter lesson for the Americans. Despite all their long-range patrols, US forces had failed to detect the approach of the Japanese armada. As America recovered from the shock of the Japanese attack, recruiting officers across the nation were besieged by young volunteers, eager to get into the fight.
I was very highly agitated at what happened out at Pearl Harbor. We weren't told too much about what happened, other than it was a big blow to the fleet. And I joined the Navy the next day, thinking that I gotta go. December 8th, 1940, the day after Pearl Harbor. My father was going to be the big stopper in my mind. When I came home that afternoon, he said, "How's school?" I gave him the paper that I needed to get a signature. And he thought for a long time. And he said, "Well, I'm too old to go. And we're going to be at war." And he said, "You go." And he signed. And tears in his eyes.
The smoke from the blazing wrecks of Pearl Harbor hung in the air for days. But America was now at war, and the Catalina crews, struggling to recover from this devastating blow, would be right in the front line.
The field at that time was...
Okay, we got the wing done. Now we go to the fuselage.
Early in 1942, new Catalinas begin coming off the production line to replace the losses at Pearl Harbor. As fresh orders pour into the consolidated factories, the call goes out for more and more workers in the race to speed up production.
I put on my application at a work system radio, and the interviewer had a drawer written up and said, "What's that?" I put the soldering on. And it's authorized that you're an electrician. So I became an electrician, and that was when the company was building from very few people, just hiring all the time. And there's consolidated, we were working 11 hours a day, 7 days a week.
The CAP soon won the respect and admiration of its crews. The standard PBY crew consisted of 8 men. A bombardier who doubled as the bow gunner, a pilot, a co-pilot, a navigator, a radio operator, a flight engineer, and 2 waist stations. Bulkheads divided the plane into 7 watertight sections. For crew comfort on long-haul patrol flights, the central compartment contained bunks and a garage. It took a lot of training to master the highly specialized art of flying in space.
Well, if you ever saw a PBY being fixed with big knuckles, but if you fold, was unstable. She'd fall off and one wing would, of course, wander unless you had to fly it every minute of the time. It had the small stabilizing pad, which you had to constantly readjust. Every time somebody moved or the road shifted just a little bit, you had to readjust. You couldn't relax very long, not if you're flying.
Real tip on a seaplane landing at any time is make sure you keep your wings level. You do not want to get straight into the water at high speed. Because it'll turn your wings as fast as they get wet.
When you come into land, when it's a tight engine, it cools down, you come and really hit hard, you know. So you haven't got any control all of a sudden. Like you put it into just about a stall just when you're about to get to the water, because splat comes down pretty hard.
It landed with a great big splash. Not a touchdown. It was a beautiful landing. But if you didn't keep coming back all the time until you got that big fat duck flying through the water, she'd go off the door in the back. Everything was really easy. That's the one thing about that thing I consider to be vicious.
The PBY certainly had its faults, but it also had great strength. And as the crews learned to handle it, they developed a growing respect for its rugged workmanship.
It's a good airplane. Very good. Low altitude, rough weather, trains full. And the stuff was a beast.
Like some great sea bird, the Catalina soared above the ocean on its long and lonely patrol. Its crew spent many hours out of sight of land, scanning the ocean for the tiny speck that could be a submarine periscope or a downed pilot drifting on a lifeline. Keeping the engines running hour after hour was the job of the flight engineer. From his cramped compartment inside the wing support, he communicated with the pilot using a series of indicator lights.
The only thing the pilot had regarding the engines in the cockpit was the throttle. Everything else is back there in the tower. He relies on his engineer.
It was the navigator's job to plot their course and guide the ship home safely.
It's nice to know where you are. Every once in a while, a crew member that wasn't doing anything would come up and look over your shoulder and say, "Where are we?" Maybe it's just a finger, okay. But they did trust you, no doubt about it. But sometimes you're going to be lost. You won't know where you are. So what do? You turn around and go back. You don't know where to go back to. You think, well, my sense tells me land is over there and water's over here. And what do?
In bad weather, it could be an almost impossible task. Many lone Catalinas vanished without trace in the vast expanse of the Pacific.
Filling them in now.
The radio operator was the only link to the outside world. His signal, tapped out in Morse code, would relay the vital early warning of enemy activity back to base. Soon the Catalina crews would play a key role in the epic sea battle that would change the entire course of the war in the Pacific.
Midway Island. Not much land, right enough. But it's our outpost. A Navy patrol place. Routine patrol. Only behind every cloud may be an
There's
enemy.
your tail feathers right there.
Following the disaster at Pearl Harbor, the Japanese
belly
continued to drive
next
back
right now.
American forces in the Pacific. In June 1942, the Imperial Japanese Navy sent a huge task force to capture the American-held Midway Island, 1,100 miles northwest of Pearl Harbor. The first objective was to lure the remaining ships of the U.S. Pacific Fleet into battle and sink. But the Japanese codes had been broken, and the defenders knew an attack was coming. What they didn't know was the exact position of the target.
Just filling, but between those lines you just made, appreciating.
Up until the Battle of Midway, the U.S. Navy, quite frankly, was not having a good war.
Get that weather brother.
Force of hit and run raids against Japanese islands. So the Battle of Midway was very much a showdown in which the U.S. Navy was going to put it all on the line to stop the Japanese fleet.
On the morning of June the 3rd, a Catalina patrol aircraft spotted the leading ships of the Japanese cargo. At dawn the following morning, another Catalina finally spotted the remaining ships, including the aircraft carrier. A large force of American carrier planes took off to strike the Japanese battleship. But the waves of dive bombers were met by superior Japanese fighters and suffered appalling losses. Then, in 10 short minutes, the tide turned completely.
Get it out, fellas.
American dive bombers caught 3 Japanese aircraft carriers whilst their decks were packed with aircraft, rearming, and refueling. With no air cover, the big carriers were sitting ducks, and all 3 quickly fell victim to American attack. Later that day, a 4th Japanese aircraft carrier was lost. Midway was a devastating defeat for the Japanese, and marked a turning point in the Pacific War at sea. At last, U.S. forces had won a decisive victory, as the Japanese found themselves on the defensive for the first time.
In the Battle of Midway, there were some elements that played a great role. Importantly, that was finding where the Japanese fleet was. And code breaking played a role in that, but it still required an aircraft to spot the ship. And it was here that the PBY played a pivotal role in the battle, because the PBY spotted not only the invasion force destined for Midway, but more importantly, spotted the carrier force.
The Catalina had proved its ability beyond any doubt, but even before Pearl Harbor, in an ongoing quest for bigger, better, the Navy had already ordered its intended replacement.
The battleship of the North, the Colorado, the mightiest seaborne aircraft now conserved.
The 4-engine Coronado was a far bigger and more modern aircraft, but it cost 3 times as much as the Catalina to build, and was a very complex machine. By contrast, the Cat was easy to produce in large numbers, and so remained the standard workhorse of the Navy. Like Henry Ford's Model T, it was slow but sure, and it got the job done. But every Catalina crewman knew that even with its armament, the slow-moving Cat stood very little chance of surviving a Japanese fighter. Those long and lonely ocean patrols would be some of the most dangerous missions of the whole Pacific War.
The Catalina has been called the cruiser of the air. Her wingspread is 105 feet. Her length from nose to tail is 65 feet. She can carry a load of many tons. Her range, fully loaded, is over 4,000 miles, and the PBYs, new and old, have stood up to all the tasks imposed by modern war.
But sometimes the odds against it were just too great. On his first combat patrol in August 1942, Bob Dinnett's Catalina was attacked out of the blue by 3 Japanese fighters.
They were real show-off. They were supposed to in and roll. I watched one of them coming in on our tail there, and he was just lazily doing a little shooting of it. I guess they figured that this was a big duck and it was going. Our radioman was killed. He was sitting right behind me. So the mechanic was shot through the chest. And those were the 2 big casualties that we had. The rest of us all had small shrapnel in it.
Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the Japanese Zeros vanished. One man was dead, one seriously wounded, and the cat was badly damaged.
And when we got away from there, our port engine was starting to burn. But suckers flew, and we noticed some dots on the horizon. Never saw such pretty pieces of palm trees in our life.
Somehow they managed to crash land the damaged Catalina in shallow water and skidded to a halt on the beach.
We stopped, and we started getting kind of worried. We really didn't know at that time where we were. Whether it was friendly or enemy. So we climbed out of the airplane and stood there with our big 45s in our hands.
There we go, fellas.
Waited.
Okay. Let's check the holidays. I forgot.
On their tropical island, Bob Dimmitt and his crew were beginning to wonder how long they could survive before help came, or the Japanese arrived.
All of a sudden we see this dot just off the water underneath this black cloud heading right for us, and it looked like a seaplane. Well, at that time we didn't know whether it was a Japanese seaplane or whether it was an American seaplane, so we didn't do anything. And we waited till the last minute, and we could finally make out that it was a Catalina. And we were jumping up and down and yelling at him, but Santa Claus has nothing on that airplane. The relief that you feel when you have a friend that just flies by like that, you can't describe it. We know then that we're home free.
Okay. Come back about 5 minutes. We'll take a 5-minute break. Okay, airbrush. And we'll get the sea blue on it.
Such narrow escapes had a...
And that's what made the flying
Okay,
boat
back.
a real advantageous platform for
Time
Navy
for the Navy
operations,
Blue
particularly in
Gray.
the Pacific, where the Navy was definitely looking towards fighting the next war.
In 1923, the Navy invited bids for a new long-range patrol aircraft. The Consolidated Aircraft Corporation had already designed flying boats for the Navy and was determined to secure this important contract. Their chief designer was a talented engineer called Isaac Macklin Ladden, known to all as Mac. In the early 1930s,
the same thing like
most
we did for the
aircraft
white.
were still biplane, with fabric-covered wings braced by a maze of steel wires. In a bold move, Mac Ladden created a metal monoplane. Its huge wing was supported on a single pylon above the fuselage, braced to the hull by only 4 struts, 2 on each side. All flying boats needed outrigger floats for stability on water, but in the air they became a liability, increasing drag and reducing performance. Mac Ladden hit on the brilliant solution of designing floats that folded up in flight to form the wingtips, reducing the drag while adding lift. The Navy was suitably impressed, and in June 1935, Consolidated won a contract for 60 aircraft, the biggest military order since World War I. The plane that now came off the production line would become a classic. It was known by its code letters PBY. P for patrol, B for bomber, and Y the prefix for Consolidated. The PBY was a big aircraft, and it certainly looked impressive.
And here were all those great big beautiful PBYs. It was love at first sight. And I said, well, I've got to fly those.
Along came a PBY. And it was gracefully soaring above us. And it was so beautiful. In my mind, it was like a soaring eagle. It just soared and made slow turns. And later on I found out what a devil it could do.
PBY, the Navy calls her. Back in 1935, the first
The same
PBY
thing we
took
did
to the
before,
water and
feathers
the
in.
air. Commonplace today, but then a milestone in the history of aviation.
But the PBY would be best known as the Catalina, or simply the Cat. With a cruising speed of little more than 130 miles per hour, the big, twin-engine Catalina was not exactly fast, but it had tremendous endurance, with a range of well over 3,000 miles, and it could stay in the air for over 15 hours. Although it was always vulnerable to attack, its main armament was substantial. It consisted of 2 heavy-caliber machine guns mounted in blisters on each side of the rear fuselage. Although it had originally been designed as a patrol aircraft, the PBY could carry 4 1,000-pound bombs, or 2 torpedoes, which greatly increased its tactical value to the Navy.
The PBY did everything it was asked to do, and more. It covered a lot of ground, and it could remain aloft for a great deal of time. Basically, though, it was designed to spot the enemy fleet. Radar was the distant I couldn't see them, and nothing could beat a pair of 2 human eyes in spotting the fleet and reporting it back to its home base.
By the late 1930s, the world was becoming a dangerous place. In the Pacific, Japan was steadily becoming more powerful and more aggressive. In Europe, Hitler's Germany was openly rearming for war and building a navy which threatened to dominate the Atlantic. Britain and America watched and waited as tensions steadily mounted. Both nations realized that airborne early warning would play a vital role in future conflict. Most admirals still put their faith in big gun warships, but a few believed that if war should come, it would be decided by air power. They would soon discover just how right they were. September 1939. Europe is plunged into war. Britain's first line of defense was the Royal Navy. Many of its warships carried seaplanes, which could be launched by catapults to scout beyond the horizon. The problem was getting them back. The open sea is a dangerous place to land an aircraft. Multi-engine, long-range patrol planes were a much safer bet, but Britain's hard-pressed RAF simply didn't have enough of them. In 1940, they ordered a fleet of PBYs to help patrol the Atlantic. It was the RAF pilots who coined the name Catalina. They liked the aircraft and soon discovered that the B in PBY really did mean bomber. They began using their Catalinas to attack German U-boats. Since the start of the war, the Nazi wolf packs had roamed across the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean, sending scores of British ships to the bottom. The Catalina became a key weapon in the battle against the U-boats, locating and sinking them in increasing numbers.
Pretty good. Now we get around the edges here, the nacelles.
But Germany's powerful fleet of surface warships remained a potent threat. In May 1941, the CAT helped to secure a major British victory at sea. The Royal Navy was in hot pursuit of the German battleship, the Bismarck. At 42,000 tons, she was the pride of the Nazi battlefield and Hitler's favorite warship. In an engagement west of Iceland, the Bismarck had sunk the British battleship HMS Hood with a direct hit. Only 3 of her crew survived. The Bismarck then escaped into the fog.
Somewhere under that mystery of fog, the Bismarck was steaming under forced draft for a safe haven. Then a rift in the clouds, a telltale wake. A Catalina flashed the word, quarry sighted.
It was a Catalina patrol plane of the RAF's Coastal Command which finally hunted down the Bismarck. Her position was reported, and Britain's Royal Navy closed in for the kill. The Bismarck went down with only 150.
Sort of like a PBY now, fellas. No mistake about it.
Britain had maintained her supremacy in the North Atlantic with the help of a plane designed to maintain United States supremacy in the Pacific.
The attack on the Bismarck clearly demonstrated the value of a long-range patrol aircraft in combat. The US was quick to learn the lesson. The long-range Catalina was the ideal aircraft for patrolling the ocean, but getting it in and out of the water meant fitting cumbersome breaching gear. It was a slow and tedious process. To solve the problem, the PBY5A was introduced, A standing for amphibian. With a retractable undercarriage, this version of the Cat was equally at home on land or at sea. Catalinas were soon stationed in US bases across the Pacific, from Midway to the Philippines, and from Wake Island to Pearl Harbor. As Japan became increasingly hostile, the Navy stepped up its daily reconnaissance flights. On a peaceful Sunday morning in December 1941, the Japanese finally launched their attack on the Pacific Battle Fleet, moored at Pearl Harbor.
We're filling in here on the port wing.
I see them coming around one by one. They scrape and bomb, and then they make a circle and come around again. They must have made about 3 or 4 passes on each attack. You couldn't believe it, and you didn't think it was happening. The whole sky was black with smoke. Everything was on fire, and there was dead people on the dock. And still the 3 feet thick on the water, and people were going around with utter confusion.
The Japanese had not only crippled the American Pacific Fleet, they had almost wiped out the airborne patrol force. 67 Catalinas were badly damaged or completely destroyed.
They picked a beautiful time. Everybody was saluting the flag. And they weren't saluting their guns.
Pearl Harbor was a bitter lesson for the Americans. Despite all their long-range patrols, US forces had failed to detect the approach of the Japanese armada. As America recovered from the shock of the Japanese attack, recruiting officers across the nation were besieged by young volunteers, eager to get into the fight.
I was very highly agitated at what happened out at Pearl Harbor. We weren't told too much about what happened, other than it was a big blow to the fleet. And I joined the Navy the next day, thinking that I gotta go. December 8th, 1940, the day after Pearl Harbor. My father was going to be the big stopper in my mind. When I came home that afternoon, he said, "How was school?" I gave him the papers that I needed to get a signature on. And he thought for a long time. And he said, "Well, I'm too old to go. And we're going to be at war." And he said, "You go." And he signed, with tears in his eyes.
The smoke from the blazing wrecks of Pearl Harbor hung in the air for days. But America was now at war, and the Catalina crews, struggling to recover from this devastating blow, would be right in the front line.
The feel at that time was, we've got to do something, and you've got to do it fast.
Early in 1942, New Catalinas begin coming off the production lines to replace the losses of Pearl Harbor. As fresh orders pour into the consolidated factory, the call goes out for more and more workers in the race to speed up production.
I put on my application that I'd worked with some radios, and of course the interviewer had a drawer that he opened up and said, "What's that?" I said, "It's a soldering iron." "What's that?" "That's a wire cut." "You're an electrician." So I became an electrician, and that was when the company was building from very few people, just hiring all the time. And they're consolidated. We were working 11 hours a day, 7 days a week.
The Cat soon won the respect and admiration of its crews. The standard PBY crew consisted of 8 men. A bombardier who doubled as the bow gunner, a pilot, a co-pilot, a navigator, a radio operator, a flight engineer, and 2 waist gunners. Bulkheads divided the plane into 7 watertight sections.
Fill in and go along,
Crew
guys.
comfort on long-haul
So what I did right there.
The central compartment contained bunks and a galley. It took a lot of training to master the highly specialized art of flying.
Well, if you ever saw what I call a PBY driver, he had thick wrists and big knuckles.
For the controls, as big as barn doors, and took a little bit of muscle to move them. It was unstable. She'd fall off on one wing or course or wander.
Wow.
You had to fly it
Oh, I missed that.
all the time. It had the small stabilizing tabs, which you had to constantly readjust. Every time somebody moved or the load shifted just a little bit, you had to readjust. You couldn't relax very long in that airplane, not if you're flying.
The real trick on a seaplane landing at any time is to make sure you keep your wings level. You do not want to get afloat into the water at high speed, because it'll turn you around so fast you'll be a wreck.
When you come into land, like it's a high angle, to boom, down you come, and it really hits hard, you know, because you haven't got no control all of a sudden. Like, you put it into just about a stall just when you're about to get to the water, just splat, you come down pretty hard. It landed with a great big splash. Not a touchdown, it was a beautiful landing. But if you didn't keep coming back all the time till you got that big fat duck plowing through the water, she'd go off the water. Because there weren't any flaps.
We need a guy that's got all this painted. Just get the fuselage and we're all done.
One thing about that thing I consider pretty vicious.
The PBY certainly
Now
had its
for the
faults, but it
fuselage.
also had great strengths.
Fun, fun,
And as the
fun
crews
till
landed
Mother took
handy,
the T-bird
he
away.
developed a growing respect for his rugged workers.
It was a good airplane. Very good. Low altitude, rough weather, rain squalls. And she was a tough little beast.
Like some great seabird, the Catalina soared above the ocean on its long and lonely patrol. Its crew spent many hours out of sight of land, scanning the ocean for the tiny speck that could be a submarine periscope or a downed pilot drifting in a life raft. Keeping the engines running hour after hour was the job of the flight engineer. From his cramped compartment inside the wing support, he communicated with the pilot using a series of indicator lights.
The only thing the pilot has regarding the engines in the cockpit are the throttles. Everything else is back there in the tower. He relies on his engineer.
It was the navigator's job to plot their course and guide the ship home safely.
It's nice to know where you are. Every once in a while, a crew member that wasn't doing anything would come up and look over your shoulder and say, "Where are we?" Well, you put your finger, right there. But
They did trust you, no doubt about it. But sometimes you're going to be lost. You won't know where you are. So what do? You turn around and go back. You don't know where to go back to. You think, well, my sense tells me the land is over there and water's over here. And what do?
In bad weather, it could be an almost impossible task. Many lone Catalinas vanished without trace in the vast expanse of the Pacific. The radio operator was the only link to the outside world. His signal, tapped out in Morse code, would relay the vital early warning of enemy activity back to base. Soon the Catalina crews would play a key role in the epic sea battle that would change the entire course of the war in the Pacific.
Midway Island. Not much land, right enough, but it's our outpost. A Navy patrol plane. Routine patrol. Only behind every cloud may be an enemy.
Following the disaster of Pearl Harbor, the Japanese continued to drive back American forces in the Pacific. In June 1942, the Imperial Japanese Navy sent a huge task force to capture the American-held Midway Island, 1,100 miles northwest of Pearl Harbor. The first objective was to lure the remaining ships of the U.S. Pacific Fleet into battle and sink. But the Japanese codes had been broken, and the defenders knew an attack was coming. What they didn't know was the exact position of the task force.
Up until the Battle of Midway, the U.S. Navy, quite frankly, was not having a good war. They had only been able to force some hit-and-run raids and stuff in these islands. So the Battle of Midway was very much a showdown in which the U.S. Navy was going to put it all on the line to stop the Japanese fleet.
On the morning of June the 3rd, a Catalina patrol aircraft spotted the leading ships of the Japanese task force. At dawn the following morning, another Catalina finally spotted the remaining ships, including the aircraft carriers. A large force of American carrier planes took off to strike the Japanese battle fleet. But the waves of dive bombers were met by superior Japanese fighters and suffered appalling losses. Then, in 10 short minutes, the tide turned completely. American dive bombers caught 3 Japanese aircraft carriers whilst their decks were packed with aircraft, rearming and refueling. With no air cover, the big carriers were sitting ducks, and all 3 quickly fell victim to American attacks. Later that day, a 4th Japanese aircraft carrier was lost. Midway was a devastating defeat for the Japanese and marked the turning point in the Pacific War at sea. At last, US forces had won a decisive victory, as the Japanese found themselves on the defensive for the first time.
In the Battle of Midway,
Yeah, Hitler guy really is.
that played a great role, and certainly that was finding where the Japanese fleet was. And code breaking played a role in that, but it still required an aircraft to spot the ship. And it was here that the PBY played a pivotal role in the battle, because it was PBY that spotted not only the invasion force destined for Midway, but more importantly, spotted the carrier force.
The Catalina had proved its ability beyond any doubt, but even before Pearl Harbor, in an ongoing quest for bigger, better, the Navy had already ordered its intended replacement.
The battleship of the air, the Coronado, the mightiest seaborne aircraft now in service.
The 4-engine Coronado was a far bigger and more modern aircraft, but it cost 3 times as much as the Catalina to build and was a very complex machine. By contrast, the Cat was easy to produce in large numbers, and so remained the standard workhorse of the Navy. Like Henry Ford's Model T, it was slow but sure, and it got the job done. But every Catalina crewman knew that even with its armament, the slow
Yeah, let's get the boys. Let's get
stood
there.
very little chance of surviving a Japanese fighter attack. Those long and lonely ocean patrols would be some of the most dangerous missions of the whole Pacific War.
The Catalina has been called the cruiser of the air. Her wing spread is 105 feet. Her length from nose to tail is 65 feet. She can carry a load of many tons. Her range, fully loaded, is over 4,000 miles, and the PBYs, new and old, have stood up to all the tasks imposed by modern war.
But sometimes the odds against it were just too great. On his first combat patrol in August 1942, Bob Dimmitt's Catalina was attacked out of the blue.
I don't know how
by
good they
3
can. It
Japanese
picks up
fighters.
though. It's,
They were real show
we'll switch over to the webcam. It'll pick up some of it pretty good. This lighting here is really improper, guys. Okay, we'll get the starboard port side like they did the starboard.
And
this ain't been done.
Shooting at us.
I can finish up the build off camera.
I guess they figured that this was a big duck that was going. Our radioman was killed. He was sitting right behind me. But the mechanic was shot through the chest. And those were the 2 big casualties that we had. The rest of us all had small shrapnel wounds.
Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the Japanese Zeros vanished. 1 man was dead, 1 seriously wounded, and the cat was badly damaged.
And when we got away from there, our port engine was starting to burn. But something blew, and we noticed some dots on the horizon. Never saw such pretty pieces of palm trees in our life.
Somehow they managed to crash land the damaged Catalina and shut it
Follow the panel
and
lines
skid
here.
it to a halt on the beach.
So we stopped. Then we started getting kind of worried. Because we really didn't know at that time where we were. And whether it was friendly or enemy. So we climbed out of the airplane and stood there with our big 45s in our hands. And waited.
After a week marooned on their tropical island, Bob Dimmitt and his crew were beginning to wonder how long they could survive before help came, or the Japanese arrived.
All of a sudden we see this dot just off the water underneath this black cloud heading right for us, and it looked like a seaplane. Well, at that time we didn't know whether it was a Japanese seaplane or whether it was an American seaplane, so we didn't do anything. And we waited till the last minute, and we could finally make out that it was a Japanese. And we were jumping up and down and we were yelling at him, but Santa Claus has nothing on that airplane. The relief that you feel when you have a friend that just flies by like that, you can't describe it. We know then that we're home free.
All but one of Bob's crew survived their ordeal, thanks to the Catalina. Such narrow escapes had a profound effect.
Hey, I got news for you. They were all brothers under the skin, boy, after that one there. There was no doubt about that. We stayed close for a long time. Yeah.
Usually bonding shows up after an incident or an accident. If the pilot manages to evade and get the plane back without being shot down, he is the biggest thing in the world for that crew. So now they're bonded to the pilot, and the crew is bonded together as one. You could see it happen, and when I was on the islands in the South Pacific and the PBYs would come back from their patrol, you could tell that there's a change in it. All of a sudden we're like brothers. You can't come between them.
Not surprisingly, every American GI in the Pacific learned to love the cat. Its familiar and friendly outline in the sky was always a welcome sight. For the troops isolated on remote coral islands, it meant news from home in the morning. For the wounded, it meant vital medical supplies and a trip to the safety of a base hospital. For survivors, drifting for days in the empty ocean, it meant life itself. And for the men who flew it, the cat became one of the family.
Oh, every hop we came back on, the airplane was our baby. We loved it. We put it to bed at night, wake it up in the morning, and we had any long flights. It never occurred to us that anything was going to go wrong.
The cats operated in the most primitive conditions, and their crews learned to become almost entirely self-sufficient.
You had to be self-sufficient. Most runners were on their own. They'd be at some out-of-the-way island in a cold. There'd be some 55-gallon drums of fuel and oil. You lived on the plane, and you ate, cooked, and lived in the plane.
On land or on water, the big cats were most vulnerable to Japanese air attacks between missions. But many of their forward bases were hacked out of the jungle and not easily spotted from the air. Their long-haul missions across the Pacific put a huge strain on the aircraft and on the dedicated ground crews who kept them flying with only the most basic equipment.
Preventative maintenance is the secret to the whole thing. The old saying goes, you can't pull off the road and call for a record. If you have a problem and you lose an engine, you're going to have to return to base. You have a full crew, full ammo, full gas load. Tell us the fact that you lose an engine and take it.
The remote jungle bases had no workshop facilities, but this didn't stop the Catalina. It carried its own set of folding work platforms, which could be hung on the engine.
There you were on the platform. You could work in the whole accessory section.
After a set number of hours in the air, each engine had to be thoroughly inspected.
Each check
Well, show what's on, fellas.
And you hate to see it coming because that meant that it was going to be work. Not just flying, it was going to be work. You had to get yourself 30. And then you would have the 30, 60, 90, and 120-hour check. Now, 120 hours takes quite a long time. That's 120 hours a year. Now the airplane's going to be down for a couple of days. In wartime, that's not really well thought of. But it has to happen. So you can imagine that there's a lot of fellas, a lot of mechanics, really running all over that airplane to get it back in the air. That's one thing a pilot doesn't want is have his airplane on the deck, not with its safety.
A close bond developed between the pilot and his chief engineer. Lives depended on both their skills. Before each mission, they would thoroughly check out the aircraft together.
It's the rapport that you develop with the pilot. And if you're the chief aboard, or if you're the senior man aboard, or if you're the flight engineer, you're a little bit closer to the pilot than the rest of the crew. They come to you first. But he's still in charge. I realized I was the man behind the wrench. I wasn't the man up front driving. The pilot drives it. I fix it. It's an Atlantic people fixing duct tape or something like that. If it had been too complicated, we wouldn't have been able to do the job.
But this faithful servant could also show another, much more aggressive side to its nature. When darkness fell, the docile cat would transform into a deadly hunter.
Guadalcanal is the most hotly contested strip of land in the South Pacific. For 5 months, the Japs have tried to win back this vital outpost, but their transport, bombed and beat, lie wrecked on the sands of the Solomon Islands.
Midway had marked the turning point at sea, but it was Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands which finally halted the Japanese advance on land. It was a critical situation as the Japanese poured men and supplies into battle, in a desperate bid to drive American forces back into the sea. The entire Japanese operation depended on regular supply runs by a fleet of transport ships operating at night and supported by destroyers and light cruisers, known as the Tokyo Express. The only hope of an American victory lay in cutting off this lifeline of supplies. It was finally achieved, with the help of a most unlikely weapon.
Anything familiar? That torso with a middle-aged sag? Her speed less than some cars can do. Got her? Right.
Almost done,
The
guys.
old
Almost done.
Cat. Navy Catalina patrol boat, PBY in a black nightgown for night camouflage. A black cat.
It was called the Black Cat because they flew at night and the plane was painted perfectly black.
Despite its age, the Catalina was pioneering a new kind of clandestine operation, which would become an increasingly important part of modern warfare.
During the day, to launch a PBY on any sort of attack mission would have been suicide because it was a slow and lumbering aircraft. But those attributes made it really particularly suited to night combat, where it could loiter over targets and search for them really at will.
For every pound of bombs dropped last month, 1 ton of enemy shipping was sunk or damaged. Records like that mean plenty in any language, dollars or yen.
The formula was very simple, but very effective. Take a regular PBY Catalina patrol plane, paint it matte black from nose to tail, hide its glowing exhaust pipes above the wings, and turn off all navigation lights. Then hang 4,000 pounds of bombs under its wings, and you have a very potent weapon. The Black Cat, the original stealth bomber.
Well, fellas, we're going to go
Another night,
touch the
another
nose
mission,
right here.
another prowl into the dark. A cat needs its 9 lives on these jobs.
Back at Pearl Harbor, the Japanese surprise attack had decimated the Catalina force. Now, under cover of darkness, the Cats took their revenge. This time, it would be the Japanese who were caught napping. These long-haul missions were always tense and exhausting for the Catalina crews.
Skipper always had us doing things. And he'd say, you guys in the blisters, I want you to keep an eye out. And if he ever saw anything, and we didn't see it first, we was in bad trouble. we recorded seeing something before he did, or he said, all right, what's going on back there? You guys sound asleep?
Without radar, the Japanese forces were unable to locate the Cats in the darkness. Even powerful searchlights usually failed to reveal the Cat's presence, and the defenders could only fire blindly into the night sky in hope of hitting something.
The searchlight would be right on us, and nobody shot at us.
Okay, fellas,
The searchlight come right on.
that concludes the paying session on the PBY5A Catalina by Airfix 1/72 scale.
We just kept right on
Well,
going.
switch
and the
cameras,
lights
get back to
went
me.
off. So they never did see us. Never would see us.
Okay, good fellas. Hope you guys enjoyed that video right there. Again, this trailer's pretty hot right now. I got the heater on right now. And I got my boxer shorts on. And I've got my tank top on. And I feel pretty comfortable. It's 17 degrees outside. And I feel pretty comfortable here. So please excuse my attire. Okay. We got the PBY all painted up. Everything else will be done off camera. Together, we got the fuselage all painted up. And we got the wings painted. That was the first thing he did, is painted the wings. And we'll put the top wing on this thing, see what it looks like. See if we get this thing to look like a PBY. Well, it's tape. That's tape on a de-icer boost. That's what's stopping it from getting in there. Well, we can take care of that right now. It'll fit now. I go, huh? I hope that hole will look right. There it is. That's your Airfix 176 go PBY, straight from the box. I got to paint the tires. Tires spin. I got to do the framework on the canopy, get that messed off and painted. Get that wing mounted and get the wing struts done on it. It's pretty much a wrap. Got the stabilizers down for a good landing. Wingtip those, they come down. Yeah. And they pull right back up. When they take off in the water, they ride on that step right there. Once both wings are airborne with the airfoil, they slowly retract those wing floats to keep it from dragging it. It's airborne. Guys, we painted this together. I could not do without you. Believe me, I could not do without you. Way I'm knocking these models out, I'll start calling myself Mojo Man. 80-year-old Mojo Man. Building a Mojo PBY by Airfix, 1964 release. Right out of the box. You guys got one in your stash, build it. It's a fun model to build. I've run across no fit issues all on it. It's goes together quite nicely. It does. It does about everything but fly, but the landing gear don't fold on it. Kooky thing is the nose wheel works, goes up and down and stuff, but there ain't no fun in that. So you got wingtip floats, they work, and you got the stabilizers, rudder, and ailerons, they work pretty well. And lastly, I'm going to go ahead and paint the figures. I just snap that wing on. So we got 2 live action videos today. So we're doing pretty good. And yeah. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start on this Messerschmitt Ravel ME262. I'm going to be starting on that. I put the Heinkel back in the box. It's too big to work on here right now. I'll probably eventually get back on it soon, but I need to finish up this star lifter back here. Star lifter. I think I'm going to probably be working on that tomorrow. I want to get the rest of the landing gear on there, landing gear doors done, and give it a good priming, and go ahead and start masking things out and painting it. Got the decals and everything over here for it. It should be ready to go. Get that in the storage, and all that's left would be that Herky Bird over there. And I got Cloudmaster going, I got decals to put on that, so I'll probably be doing that. And I got the decals I got to put on the Joplin. Airfix Joplin right here. This is a hell of a model. One hell of a kit, guys, you know. I'm not too much of a jet guy. But I love jets of the Cold War because they got beautiful looking lines like this one. This was like an A4 Skyhawk on steroids. That's what it reminds me of. One hell of a jet for its day. All-weather interceptor, the Javelin was. I think they used up to about, what, mid-1960s or so? It wasn't something else after that. They served their purpose. They were a very reliable jet, but Gloucester did a wonderful job designing that job. But it's a beautiful looking jet. And we got and we did this today. I could not do without you. That was video one today, live action. So I'll go ahead and we'll be painting the top side up next. Get her going. Got live action coming your way, fellas. A lot of live action. Okay, it's time to get out of here. Oh, good gravy. It's 20 minutes to 1. I gotta get to go to work tomorrow. Okay, guys, I think I shot my wad for the day. I got everything taken care of. Got 2 videos out. Get this uploaded and get me a fast bite to eat and hit the whole part sack and go to work tomorrow. Okay, this is Frankie Day from Frankie Day Mullet signing on. Make mama happy, take care of little ones, say your prayers, and be aware of your surroundings, and stay focused when you drive. If you just have a kid, make it out. It's getting cold outside. You get not a good day for barbecuing. Right in the wintertime, it's not to get here. The winter got here too fast. Okay, I'm out of here. Make mama happy, say your prayers. God love you guys. Thank you from all news and subscribers for your wonderful candor and views and comments. I'm deeply honored to y'all. This is Frankie Day from Frankie Day Mullet signing off. Catch you guys on the next video.